Oh, it's kind of chilly in here. Mhm. You can call Toho and they'll come and shut it off. Ron can't get out there. I can't leave. I don't have a way to get back because I'm on Sunrail. Then get Rick to do it. Call Rick. He can turn it off. I don't want the house flooded.
No, it's okay. We can always add it. Okay. All right. Bye.
Good morning, Commissioner. Hey, good morning. I'm glad they brought you back on the side. I know. I felt so left out. I saw pictures of your swearing in. Congratulations.
Mayor Bates, can I get a sound check from you, please?
Good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, there you are, sounding good, and thank you.
You
Good to see you.
too.
Hey, Mayor. How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good.
Good morning.
Hi. That was a morning, lady.
You're a busy guy today, huh? I like your mask.
I can't dress myself.
Oh, it matches my. Yeah, well, I'm gonna go get some toys to some kids in
Mayor McDonald
the
picked up
school
the
after this.
all right?
I know, you look like
I had him on speed dial when I decided to color coordinate based on what he recommends.
This is crazy board week for me, because I have city council on Monday, I had AUC yesterday, MetroPlan the airport today, and expressway.
Oh, man. Yeah, well, we had our commission meeting Monday. I have this today, and then tomorrow I have the Links Oversight and stuff.
Yep.
Not as busy as you, but none of us a busy week.
That'll all be done soon enough.
Everybody here is supposed to be, we get 11?
We're waiting on Mayor Demings.
We get Mayor Demings.
Yep.
We had our oath ceremony yesterday.
Maybe you should all clap.
Oh, did you? Do you have a new commissioner?
Mr. Mohiasen, it looks like you're still connecting to audio. I don't know if you can hear us. Maybe you could send us some information in the chat to let us know if you can hear us, please.
Mayor McDonald, would you be willing to do the Pledge of Allegiance? I can do that. You don't have to study too much.
Oh, we've been helping her.
Okay. You get it started, everybody else takes over. Yeah, I needed more notice, Bob.
I might be out of practice.
Chairwoman El Badri, can we get a sound check from you, please?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Sounding good. Thank you.
I was gonna follow up today, so yeah, we are. So what else is new?
Yeah. That's the one thing, you know, I love is, get presented.
Oh, no.
We managed to squeak them in. We were in California, you looking at
Advocate, interview.
starting September, definitely.
And we've got school board members involved, I mean, everyone's involved in the state. And we're the ones that have all come together to put her up.
Cruise ship.
And it's very, very difficult. Wow. So having your support, is that you? Patty's dad.
Gary?
Yes.
International. He was involved way back when with that.
Oh, yeah.
He's 86, so.
Oh, very good.
He's been very frustrated.
I'm terming out in 4 months anyway, so I don't have a problem saying that.
We're gonna miss you.
6.
A lot of.
My time
That's
here
all
in
you can do.
Daytona, South Daytona Beach Shores, so
I don't want to run
when
for
I say
anything.
think it always gets taken, because it's usually either 4th of July week or the week after, so you've got the whole, all that going on.
Hey, how are you? race to Daytona. I'm expecting a former council person, former board appointee,
Yeah.
Lounge.
Oh, really?
We ready? Lounge.
Well, we don't have a quorum right now.
We can get started until,
We can get started, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Mr. Chairman, we are recording live on YouTube, so you can begin when you're ready.
the first thing I was gonna check, make sure we are recording. Good
We
morning.
are
I'd like to call
recording.
Good morning. I'd like to call the MetroPlan Orlando 12 December 9th, 2020 meeting to order. Welcome. This is a hybrid MetroPlan Orlando board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'm Bob Delary. I'm the chair of this meeting. It'll also have a team of staff to be working to ensure that this hybrid meeting is running smoothly. So, Gary, I know that you're the executive director, so thank you for doing that, putting that together. We'll continue to be cautious with our approach to make sure we have the minimum amount of board members physically present here. We need 11 for quorum. We're short one right now, but there's certain things we can get done before we need a quorum. Correct, Gary?
Yes, sure.
Just want to make sure. We have staff. It's prepared the boardroom for all of us. We're going to be properly spaced, obviously. There's coffee in the back there if anybody wants to get something to drink. There'll be various board members joining us online that we're anticipating to discussion and voting on action items, and the public will be able to participate virtually as well. At this time, I'd like to ask the Mayor of Maitland, Mayor McDonald, to lead us in the pledge. Can we all stand, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. For those who are just joining us online, we'll be keeping your microphones mute unless you're being recognized to speak. We'll ask you to raise hands in the features to participate for discussion. There'll be 2 public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public who'd like to speak can join us virtually this morning by using the raised hands feature found in the participation tab. If you're attending by phone, you can hit the *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you're called on, your microphone will be temporarily unmuted by staff. We'll ask you to state your name and contact information for the record. If you're joining us in person, please fill out the public speaking card. We'll also be accepting comments by email or phone messages before the meeting. Public comments received before the meeting will be read by staff at the conclusion of today's meeting. I'd like to congratulate several people that have been newly elected. One in particular that's here today joining us is the Mayor of Sanford, Mayor Art Woodruff. Congratulations, Mayor. We also have, we're going to be anticipating from the city of Kissimmee, as well as members from Orange County, so we're waiting. good. Before we move on, can we just have a sound check to make sure we're still on?
Can you hear me okay, Mary Ann?
Yes, we can hear you in the boardroom now. Thank you. Sorry for that delay. I think we're back on. Good.
And Mary Ann, we are recording, correct?
We are recording and we are live on YouTube. Yes, sir.
Wanted to make sure. Okay, I'm just going to back up a minute here. So we had several new elected officials take office, and I wanted to congratulate the Mayor of Sanford for joining us, Mayor Art Woodruff. So, Mayor, thank you for being here today. We're also anticipating some new members that are going to be appointed to this board, one from the city of Kissimmee and one from the Orange County. So we're anticipating and looking forward to their participating as well as their input. So looking forward to meeting them as well. At this time, I'd like to recognize the Executive Director of MetroPlan, Gary Hutman, for some announcements.
Good morning, Chairman Delare, board members, and all those attending this morning online. I want to thank all the board members for helping us out in getting a quorum present this morning. This is especially important today as we wrap up and adopt our new 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We have exactly 11 board members in the room this morning, so we're just meeting our quorum. You are helping us to make these hybrid meetings a success, and I want to thank you for that. As Chairman Delare mentioned, for those of you online, we'll be using the raised hands feature to recognize board members during the meeting and to call on members of the public, also online, during the comment time. If you have joined us by phone only without the video, please use *6 to mute and unmute your line, and please use *9 to raise your virtual hand so the meeting host can see that you wish to be recognized. After being recognized and speaking, please use *9 again to lower your hand after you're done. This morning, we don't have any board alternates with us, but we do have one member of the quorum here this morning who changed his plans late yesterday afternoon, and I want to thank Mayor Nelson for doing that. About 3:30, 4 o'clock yesterday, we lost one of our quorum, and Mayor Nelson stepped up and changed his plans in order to be here this morning.
Did Santa Claus let you out?
Thank you, Mayor.
We also have Alex Laffey from Osceola County, and who is the Vice Chair of the Transportation Systems Management and Operations Committee, is representing Doug Jameson this morning. So thank you all for joining us. Those of you here in the boardroom that need parking validations, once again, you should text your name and ticket number to this number, 407-497-1536, for contactless validations. You've heard me talk about the continuing resolution that was executed in Washington, D.C. at the end of September that is effective through Friday of this week, through December 11th. And I've been on weekly calls with folks from around the country through the National Association of Regional Councils, trying to stay up to date on that. And 2 days ago, the message that we received that the continuing resolution is most likely going to be extended to December 18th, so a one-week extension of that, keeping the pressure on the lawmakers in Washington to come to terms with the omnibus appropriations as well as the COVID relief. I did attend an interesting NARC event on December 2nd. It was entitled Seismic Shifts, the Supreme Court and Local Governments. It was very interesting, given by an attorney, Lisa Sorinen, who's with the State and Local Legal Center. And I'm sure that that's going to be available. A recording of that is going to be available through NARC. And I can make that available to the board if you wish.
Yes, please.
Okay. I met with and have been meeting with DOT staff. You all know that they are charged by the governor to rebalance their work program by the end of this month. And we've also heard that there's an $80 million shortfall in the current year, and then a $20 million shortfall spread out over the next 4 years. And Secretary Perdue and his staff have been working very hard on that and been very cooperative with us, I assume with other MPOs in the district as well. But it's really very positive information that we're receiving from them, especially with the current year having an $80 million shortfall, and it doesn't look like there will be any significant impact to projects as they do that rebalancing, at least in the current year. And then in the outer years of the work program, they caution that that's still a bit fluid and they're still working on it, but overall I think it's a very positive message. I talked also about the MPOAC Institute and how that's going to be different this year. And they do have, again, I've mentioned this before, that they do have a recorded version of the Institute that we can sign any board members up for that wish to have either take it for the first time or perhaps a refresher. And you can work on that. It's about a 6-hour course spread over 5 sessions, and you can work on that at your own time. But they're also having a live virtual institute on March 19th and 20th, and then a second session on April 23rd and 24th. And because there's no travel involved, they've shortened it up a bit. The cost is not as much. We generally budget for up to 3 board members to attend, so certainly that's available to you. We are going to be having a executive committee meeting immediately following this, and we'll be discussing some legislative items. And then finally, we have some congratulations that are in order that I want to draw your attention to. Mr. Chairman, several years ago, the local WTS organization, and that is Women in Transportation Group, it's a national organization with a local chapter here, created a new award. And they did that award, it coincided with Harry Barley's retirement, and it's an award for to recognize either an individual or an organization that has demonstrated excellence in regional coordination and cooperation. And I'm very happy to report that this year's recipient is Virginia Whittington of the MetroPlan Orlando staff. Yeah. So congratulations to Virginia. Chairman DeLauria, that completes my announcements this morning. Now we'd like to go right into attendance. With your permission, and I'll ask Virginia to call the roll so we can confirm a quorum for the meeting.
Thank you. Staff?
Thank you, Gary, and good morning, everyone. All board members that are online, if you would please go ahead and unmute yourselves in preparation for the roll call. And you can go on mute again after your name is called. Make sure that your video is on so that we can confirm that it's you. You'll find the mute and unmute video buttons on the bottom left-hand corner of your toolbar. After we've called the roll for those online, we will call roll for those who are in the boardroom in person. We ask that you would please say here or present when your name is called. Commissioner Arrington?
Present.
Mayor Bates?
Here.
Commissioner Bonilla? Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Ortiz? Commissioner Siplin?
Present.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Present.
Commissioner Gomez Cordero? And Mayor Fisher. And now to those who are in person, Commissioner DeLauria?
Here.
Mayor Dyer?
Here.
Mayor Demings?
Here.
Mr. Good? Commissioner Grebe?
Here.
Commissioner Janer?
Here.
Mayor McDonald?
Here.
Mayor Nelson?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Uribe?
Present.
Mayor Woodruff?
Here.
And I need to go back to Mr. Good.
In the
microphone.
In the microphone.
Here.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we do have an in-person quorum.
So just for clarification, that means we have 11 present, correct?
Correct.
I just want to make sure. Thank you. Appreciate everyone working with us. This time we'll go to committee reports. First committee report comes from Municipal Advisory Committee.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. The Municipal Advisory Committee met last week, December 3rd, in a virtual workshop format. And the items presented for review and discussion included our November meeting minutes, an FDOT request to amend the fiscal year 2020-2021 through 2024-25 TIP to include a pedestrian lighting project, a traffic signal project, a links project, and a traffic operations project in downtown Orlando. Also, the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the cost feasible plan, and unfunded needs. We didn't have any other presentations scheduled, and our next meeting is February 4th, and blessedly that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for committee? Anybody online that has a question? Anybody has a raised hand? Then we'll move on. We'll now go to the Community Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Chair and Board. At last week's December 2nd virtual workshop, the Community Advisory Committee heard a final update on the 2045 MTP Cost Feasible Plan and MTP Public Participation. We expressed support for the plan while acknowledging that many areas of transportation technology are moving so quickly that the plan will continue to need significant updates in the years ahead. Because of the workshop format, no vote was taken. However, committee members engaged in discussion with staff on several topics related to the plan. These included the need for transit funding, how technology advances will affect future plan updates, changes in the roles of connected and automated vehicles, the diminishing gas tax receipts, transportation equity and accessibility, and how changes in work and living habits brought on by the pandemic may affect future needs. In addition to that, I would like to also highlight two areas where there was additional comments throughout our CAC meeting. In our review of public comments received regarding the MTP, one of our members pointed out comments from Central Floridians for Transit, who requested MetroPlan consider moving funds from road widening to transit projects. Staff did a great job addressing these comments with the restrictions of federal transportation funding. Transit receives only 20% of all federal transportation funding, while highways and roads get the lion's share. That has been the status quo since 1982. We hope that changes soon, but we recognize that MetroPlan has made great efforts to prioritize flexibility in urbanized area funding for transit, and we encourage them to continue in that spirit. Additionally, while technology is changing rapidly, we do have to be very cognizant of the economics and cost of transportation for working folks and families. As there's a lot of energy around automated vehicles, some people think that there may be a need for decreased mass transit. One of our members brought up a very good example of how transit is providing some relief to cost-burdened families who may not own a car or be able to use a car for every trip. As one of our members pointed out, taking an Uber X from Point Siena to a job at Florida Hospital costs 82 cents a mile, versus using a Sunrail annual pass that cost drops down by 20x to 4 cents a mile. As these are the economics and impacts that we should continue to take into account as we follow the changes in technology and move forward with planning for the future of our communities and making significant transportation investments. That concludes my remarks. The next CAC meeting will be a virtual workshop and will be held on January 27th.
Thank you. Excellent comments. Any questions for the committee? Anyone online? Any raised hands?
Mr. Chairman, there are no raised hands.
Thank you. This time we move on to Technical Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Chairman Delary. Good morning, members of the board. Technical Advisory Committee met on December 4th, last Friday, and we reviewed and discussed two main items. The first was the amendments to the TIP requested by FDOT under agenda item number 9A. And the second item was the 2045 MTP cost feasible plan. There was some discussion in the committee, mainly about the methodology to prioritize the TIP projects and some other questions about the support of the local municipal government through this process. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman, and I'm ready for any questions.
Thank you. Very brief and precise. Any comments? Any raised hand?
There are no hands, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the Transportation System Management Operation Committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The TISMO committee met on December 4th, 2020. Based on direction from the board at the September meeting, this meeting was held as a virtual workshop in which action items that are being advanced to the MetroPlan Orlando board were reviewed and discussed, but no formal action taken and a quorum was not required. The board's action on these items will be ratified at a future in-person TISMO meeting. And the following items were reviewed and discussed, including the October 23rd, 2020 TISMO meeting minutes and FDOT's request that the fiscal year 2020/21 to 2024/25 TIP be amended to include the previously mentioned pedestrian lighting project, traffic signal project, links project, and a traffic operations project in downtown Orlando. And we also reviewed MetroPlan Orlando's update of the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or MTP, cost feasible plan, and unfunded needs. And finally, we reviewed the appointment of a workforce development task force to address some of the technical skills and human resource needs in the local transportation industry and engage technical institutions and high schools on careers in transportation. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman, and our next meeting is January 22nd.
Thank you. Any questions for the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any.
Hands,
I do not see any hands, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for their hard work. This time we'll go on to public comments on action items. If you'd like to speak, please fill out the electronic speaker card. If you do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on the action item? I'd like to ask staff. If so, please raise your hand or press *9 on the keypad. When you are recognized for comments, please give us your name and address for the record. When you're called on, your microphone will be unmuted. And Virginia, do we have anyone?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have two who would like to make public comment on action items this morning. The first is Mr. David Moran.
Mr. Moran, please give us your name and address for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. You have to give us your name and address.
Yes. Yes. Hi, this is David Thomas Moran, and I'm one of the members of the steering committee for Central Floridians for Public Transit. My address is 126 North Mills Avenue, Orlando, Florida 32801. And I just wanted to speak to the fact that we did submit a letter commenting on the plan, and we do really appreciate the hard work that the staff has done to make this process accessible and to work within the constraints of what we're navigating in terms of funding limitations. But I also just want to point out that we are concerned about how this plan is really not a new vision as long as these funding constraints continue, and to challenge the board to really think about reallocation. Now, my understanding is from a recent petition that's going out from Smart Growth America, they're pushing for a 50-50 allocation between transit and roads. And though we understand that the current allocation, I think, is 19% for transit, when you're only considering the funds within Orlando, within MetroPlan Orlando's control, when we look at also toll road funding, that dwindles down more to like 9.5% in terms of the overall $25 billion budget. So my question is, how do we reallocate to ensure that we really are at that 20% allocation, and why is it that the toll road funds are in a vacuum separate from what, from our system? So some of the conversations that we've had are just what are the strategies that we can take? We're grateful that Orange County, for example, was pushing forward a dedicated funding source with the sales tax. But with that not being an option right now, what can we do? And so we're here to support with that. We plan to meet with board members over the next early months of 2021, just to talk more about who we are as a coalition. But we are very concerned that the 25-year outlook is more of the same, And people with Sunrail, it's unacceptable that we don't have weekend and late night service. It's unacceptable that some folks are waiting an hour or longer to catch a bus, or are sleeping in break rooms after their shifts because the buses aren't even operating in a hospitality sector dominated region. So we believe that there's a lot more change that needs to happen, and we're here to be a part of it and to propose solutions. But we are very concerned that this plan is not transit focused, and it's not setting up for us for success to ensure equity and access for all Central Floridians. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. I will add that with toll roads, the tolls are set on the operation and maintenance and paying back the bonds to build the road. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you, and appreciate your comments. Virginia, who we have next?
Mr. Chairman, we have Ms. Theo Webster.
Can you give us your name and address for the record?
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay, thank you. It's Theo Webster, 759 Alton Avenue, and I'm speaking for the League of Women Voters of Orange County. The League of Women Voters of Orange County published our transportation report card in 2018, giving the area a grade of D. We were encouraged in 2019 by Mayor Jerry Deming's work to put a penny sales tax on the ballot as a dedicated funding source for transit. We were discouraged with events of the past year, the COVID-19 pandemic and the job and business losses associated with it. We joined with our group as part of Central Floridians for Transit Coalition, and we encourage you to consider remedies for the many issues outlined in their letter. We would particularly like to know MetroPlan staff improvement in making the long-range transportation planning process, project prioritization, and funding feasibility more transparent, collaborative, and flexible. Through your public engagement process and data gathering, the top desired changes from the public to Central Florida's transportation system were transit related. More frequent public transit that goes to more places, better connections between the public transit and final destinations, safety, making roads more friendly for pedestrians and bicyclists, bus-only lanes for bus rapid transit service, expansion of Sunrail service, and Brightline and Sunrail possibilities to connect to the Orlando International Airport. One of our primary findings in our transportation report card was the need for dedicated funding source for transit in Central Florida. This plan shows the shortfalls around the funding issue, with many of the transit projects not being cost feasible in your plan, even though the public is telling you these projects are needed. We have spent billions of dollars on road widening in the past. We are now learning this is not a viable option for the future with the growth in the area. With technology, electric and autonomous vehicles, gas tax revenues are declining. We need a plan to move into the future. A 25-year projection should reimagine public transportation to best meet the diverse needs of the community. Could we be talking about congestion pricing, vehicle miles travel taxation, a carbon tax, or possible penny sales tax in the future?
Ms. Webster, your
Thank
time
you.
has expired.
Okay, and can I submit these comments in writing as well?
Absolutely.
can.
We'd be happy to have those.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else, Ms. Virginia?
Mr. Chairman, that concludes those who have submitted speaker cards and raised their hand for action items.
Do we have any cards that need to be read into the record? I'd like to ask staff.
We did not receive any comments prior to the meeting in writing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to consent agenda. The consent agenda that we have in our book. I'm sure everyone's reviewed it. Do we have direction?
Motion for approval, Jada?
Second, Uribe.
We have a motion and a second. Staff record who made the motion and the second. I'm taking.
Marion, did you get that? Commissioner Janer, you made the motion.
Yes.
Commissioner Uribe, second? Okay.
That's correct. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing that we have people in virtual, we need to do a roll call vote, I would imagine. so we'll ask staff to do that.
Okay, if those members who are online will go ahead and unmute your microphones. This is for the consent agenda. Arrington,
Aye.
Bates,
Yes.
Sipling,
Aye.
Zimbauer,
Aye.
Gomez Cordero.
Aye.
Did I miss anyone online who may have arrived after the roll was called? I will now move to those in the room. Delary,
Aye.
Dyer,
Yes.
Demmings,
Aye.
Good,
Yes.
Grebe,
Aye.
Janer,
Yes.
McDonald,
Aye.
Nelson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Uribe,
Aye.
and Woodruff.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, I'll now move on to action items. Our first action item is the approval of FDOT amendment to the 2020-21 and 2024-25 TIP. We have staff present, please.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This amendment that we're considering this morning includes 4 projects. There is a new pedestrian lighting project in Orange County, and then there's additional funding for a traffic signal project at US 441 and State Road 50. And then Lynx has funds rolling forward from 2020 to 2021 for their capital grant to purchase buses. And then there's a new advanced traffic management or operations project in downtown Orlando. And you all have the information on this in your agenda packets. So with that, unless there's any questions, we are asking for your approval of the amendment.
Move to
Questions,
approve.
staff? Anyone in the, online has any questions, please raise your hand.
Mr.
Seeing
Chairman,
none, we'll have direction from the board.
Mr. Chairman, move approval of the amendment.
McDonald.
Second, Woodruff.
Woodruff seconded it. Any discussion? Any raised hands?
there are no raised hands, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll call the vote. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Okay, first to those online, Arrington,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Sipling,
Aye.
Zimbauer,
Aye.
Gomez Cordero,
Aye.
and to those in the room, Delary,
Aye.
Dyer,
Yes.
Demmings,
Aye.
Good, Good,
Aye.
Grebe,
Aye.
Janer,
Yes.
McDonald,
Aye.
Nelson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Uribe,
Aye.
and Woodruff.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll now go on to the other action item, our second item, which is the 2045 MetroPlan Transportation Plan. It's in tab 3. This is something that we've been working on for a number of months. At this time, we'll hear from staff.
Good morning, board members. Thank you so much for being here today. As Gary mentioned, this is a very important meeting. So on this day 5 years ago, this board approved our long-range transportation plan for the year 2040. And today we are asking you to approve our 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So your action today will ensure that federal and state funds will continue flowing to the region uninterrupted. So needless to say, it's a very important action that you're taking on behalf of the region today. So we appreciate your presence at the meeting. Alex and I will be doing a tag team presentation today. I'll be speaking to the public participation portion, and Alex will be giving an update on the technical side of the plan. So last month you heard an in-depth overview of the plan, what was in it, the public participation, things that we've been hearing from members of the public. So today we're really just going to focus on changes to the plan and comments that we received on the draft 2045 plan. And of course, we want to make sure all your questions are answered. As Chairman mentioned, tab 3 is where you will find the information for this item. So there you have your board action fact sheet, which gives you the summary. There's the adopting resolution and also the full official record of public comments as well. Next slide, please. So we received many wonderful and thoughtful comments on the 2045 plan. We had the draft version out for public comment for a little bit over a month. So the public comment period went from October 16th through November 20th. And we ended up receiving 39 comments. And as I mentioned, the full text of those comments you have at tab 3, and I hope you've taken the chance to read through all of those, because we have some folks who really took a lot of time to put some good thoughts together. Most of the comments that we received came from individuals, but we did receive 5 different letters from agency or advocacy groups, and I'll be touching on those in a little bit. But when it comes to the most popular topics for comments, you see those on the chart here. So we see transit and funding were 2 of the more popular topics, as you also heard from our commenters today. So we'll move on to the next slide, and I'll give you a little bit more of an overview on what we heard. So when we fed the text of all the public comments into a word cloud generator, this is what popped out. When I first looked at this, what really stood out to me was the clear connection between people and transportation. So we know that transportation has a really direct effect on the quality of life of everyone who lives and visits the Central Florida region. And I think that really came through clearly here. But as you can see, the biggest word that pops out in bright blue there is transit. So transit was, as we've told you before, something that people want a lot more of in the region. Most of the comments that we received focus on how can we make the transit system more convenient. So people want to see more frequency. They would like to see more routes to more destinations, improvements in first and last mile connections. We had a lot of commenters who spoke to the importance of transit giving access to underserved communities in our area and allowing them to get to essential services around the region, as well as employment and education. We received a letter from Central Floridians for Public Transit, as Mr. Moran mentioned during his public comment. And their letter really focused on more funding for transit and several suggestions for improvement. So you can find that at comment number 38. And our next most popular category for comments was funding. And this is actually pretty closely related to transit as well, because a lot of the comments here had to do with the need to find a dedicated funding source for transit. And in addition to transit, bicycle and pedestrian projects also rose to the top here in these funding comments. Folks wanted to see more of an investment in those projects so that we can improve safety in the region for our more vulnerable users. And we also even had a few ideas offered on new transportation funding models to replace the gas tax. And of course, we know this is a conversation that's really going to have to happen on the federal level, but we also have options for local sources as well. The general category, which is kind of our miscellaneous, we had quite a few comments here because there was a great range of topics addressed. We did have a few specific geographic areas called out where folks wanted to see improved transportation. So some of those areas include East Orange County, specifically the Avalon and Stony Brook areas, the Rosemont area in West Orange County, and Poinciana Four Corners down in Osceola. We received several comments from members of the public with thanks and compliments for our planning efforts, which we really appreciated. Other comments had to do with the Corinne Drive project. As you all probably remember, we completed the Corinne Drive Complete Street study last year. And so that ended in us recommending a design to move forward with in the future. Full design and construction still needs to be funded for that project. And a lot of the residents in the area are staying in touch with us and really advocating for this project to continue moving forward. So that is something that we as a staff are looking at. The design phase is funded in our current TIP, and we're hoping in the next TIP to be able to get the construction funded as well. Bicycle and pedestrian was another big topic to focus on. Again, I mentioned safety is a concern here. We received a letter from advocacy group Bike Walk Central Florida, which you all know better as the organization that oversees the Best Foot Forward for Pedestrian Safety program. And the Bike Walk folks praised the plan's move in a multimodal direction, but they did ask for more funding on the bicycle and pedestrian front to be able to better address those safety issues. We also heard from the Florida Trail Association that was interested in a couple of projects. They wanted us to reflect the Florida National Scenic Trail in our maps, and they are advocating for a land bridge across State Road 528 that would connect the Deseret Ranch to the Housecott Preserve so people can hike over. So we are in contact with them and seeing how we can better coordinate with them on those. You can't talk about a long range plan without talking about technology. And so we did receive several comments that noted different types of technology that folks thought that we should be planning for. And we also received a note from the City of Orlando on their future ready plan efforts that are underway. And lastly, and the last major topic area was environmental. So the Florida Forest Service offered up some comments. They did confirm that our plan does not impact the two of the state forests, and they sent us some notes on potential impacts on other projects. So we will coordinate with them as these projects start making progress. There is a much more thorough environmental review process that they all go through. So we'll be working with them on that. So that is the summary of the public comments in the plan. So at this time, I will hand it off to Alex, and he's going to talk about some of the updates that were made to the cost feasible plan.
Great, thanks, Cynthia. Again, good morning, Chairman DeLaury, members of the board, all those listening in this morning. Really the key focus of my part of today's presentation is really answering this question that we have here is what has changed since we last presented this to you? What has changed since our agency and public involvement period? And that's what I'm going to cover over the next few slides. Go to the next slide, please. So these changes can really be encapsulated in these 5 categories. And a lot of the comments that we received and the changes that we made were actually from your staffs. So it was ensuring that these plans were as consistent to the maximum extent feasible with your plans, but also with our existing priorities. So there are some cases where we updated project limits to what we call logical termini to make sure that they're stopping at the correct place. As we've identified in previous plans or studies, a handful of those. We also removed some duplicate and overlapping projects because our needs assessment process was very different from years past. It was not a volume to capacity or a congestion planning process. We pulled needs in projects from a variety of different sources, and because of that, we did have a few instances of duplicate and overlapping projects. We actually combined those project types, so you'll see complete streets and operational projects kind of together in some cases, identifying and really calling attention to the need of both improved reliability along the roadway, but also improved accessibility to the connecting land uses. Also, based on feedback that we received from our agency partners, we did revise project descriptions to be more fitting with what's actually going to go out there. So some projects that were previously identified as widening projects, or have actually, those descriptions have been changed to operational or ITS, Intelligent Transportation System improvements. So those are using technology, using active and to really lay the fiber and identify the technology so we can actively manage and monitor these transportation systems to improve reliability and efficiency. We also, based on some updates from Florida's Turnpike Enterprise, we identified additional toll-funded projects that's consistent with their master plan. And also based on feedback from our local partners, we updated our local transportation revenues to ensure that it was consistent with your local government's capital improvement programs. With those 4 changes above, we revised our documentation and have put that information back online. As the chair mentioned and as Cynthia mentioned, the details are actually found in tab 3 of your agenda along with the resolution for today's adoption. So with all those changes, we can go to the next slide, which is really looking at a $27.9 billion plan. Again, this is made up of federal, state, and local funds and those toll-funded projects as Commissioner Delary said, which are bond-funded projects to expedite the construction of those toll facilities, with those bonds being paid back through toll revenues, over the course of time. 53% of those funds are toll revenues, toll road funds, while 47% of those funds are really at the discretion of this board, federal, state, and local revenues, almost $13.2 billion over the course of 2026 through 2045, which is that 20-year period outside of our transportation improvement program. So we have our current TIP, which we had an amendment to earlier today. That's for the next 5 years. This plan picks up where that leaves off and takes us in 20 additional years into the future. So again, $27.9 billion. But as we go to the next slide, I'm really going to focus on the federal, state, local, that $13.19 billion over the next 20, 25 years. As we look across this kind of pie chart here, you'll see that we have the I-4 funds and those projects, continuation in the finishing up of the I-4 Ultimate project, from Kirkman to 434. But we also have cost feasible projects for the continued ultimate configurations on the eastern and western segments of I-4 within our study area. Those projects based on the SIS multimodal cost feasible plan are cost feasible here. We have our state road category. And as I mentioned in my previous presentation, to be eligible for these funds, projects have to be on the national or state highway system. But those projects are multimodal in nature. As you look at that list of projects, you'll see some widening projects, but you also see a lot of complete streets projects, technology projects, and other solutions and improvements that improve reliability, access, and safety on the state highway system. We have our off-system widening program, which is using state funds, and about $298 million, which I'll talk about in a moment, to support your local governments with some of those congestion challenges off the state highway system. This has been one of our challenges in previous plans. How do we support our local government partners with some of those congestion challenges? This plan identifies a solution, and we're allocating those funds, which I'll talk about more in a moment. As we look at the next three categories, TSMO, that's Transportation Systems Management and Operation, Complete Street, and Bike, Ped, and Trails. I know that 1% looks shocking when you look at it kind of in full scale, but kind of going back to eligibility, going back to discretion and flexibility that this board has provided us. That's all of our urbanized area funds, our TMA funds, Transportation Management Area funds, totals up to about $635 million between the years 26 through 35. Those funds are at the direct discretion of our board. You guys direct those funds. But as we look at those three categories, systems management and operation actually follows the board's policy of using 21% of those urbanized area funds. So while it shows 1%, we're actually using 21% of those eligible funds. That amounts to about $134 million over the life of the plan. As we look at complete streets, so these are those non-capacity, access, safety, reliability focused projects. That's 32% of our urbanized area funds, amounting to about $203.4 million over the life of the plan. And as we look at Bike, Ped, and Trails, 17% of our urbanized area funds are actually going to that category of projects, which amounts to about $108 million, again, over the life of the plan. As we look at transit, it's about 19 or 20% of all funds. This combines our board's policy of using 30% of our urbanized area funds, and then also complements the federal and state and other local revenues that help fund our regional mass transit system. But as it relates to the TMA-related funding, the 30%, that's $190 million that the board could use on other projects that is actually being directed and dedicated to public transit. As we look at the local category, and as I mentioned, and as you're well aware, as you look at your local capital improvement programs, that category includes a full range of projects from widening to technology solutions, as well as bicycle and pedestrian projects. So again, the state road category in that local category, even though they're not mode focused, as you dive into those lists, you will see that they are intermodal and multimodal in nature. I think it's also important to note here, this is our first plan where we've explicitly identified transportation management area projects within the long range plan. Before, we used to just set these funds aside and we would deal with them annually. But because we wanted to have a really strong accounting of our funds into the future, there may be cases where we may actually have to come back to you and amend or modify the plan to ensure that your priorities this board's priorities are funded appropriately and in line by the Florida Department of Transportation. So we'll take that as it comes, but we'll be coming back to you in those instances where we have to modify to ensure that your priorities are funded as you've directed. So as we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little more about those funding programs those new funding programs that I mentioned last month. And as it relates to technology, we're continuing our signal retiming program. It's $1 million a year over the life of the plan. That's something that we've already done. We have a kind of a record of success in signal retiming to kind of get as much efficiency out of the system without adding lanes. A new program that we've identified here is the demonstration projects. So we're funding $250,000 a year for autonomous, connected, electric, and shared vehicle demonstration projects. Both of these technology categories are going to be coordinated and managed through our Transportation Systems Management and Operations Advisory Committee, and we'll start having those conversations with them to better frame out these programs and identify candidate projects and get those into the work program. As it relates to active transportation, this plan has also identified two other funding or sub-allocations, $1 million a year to our school mobility program. That supplements the Florida Department of Transportation Safe Routes to School program. So this is a program where it's providing safe walking conditions, improved access to public schools with a focus on elementary schools. We've also identified, based on our needs assessment and feedback from the public, our critical sidewalk gaps program. So again, traditionally, we wouldn't have funded these types of projects within the plan, but we've set aside $1 million a year over the life of the plan to really solve for those critical sidewalk gaps. So adding additional sidewalk capacity where it's most needed based on safety and other walking conditions. We're going to be working with our technical advisory committee in 2021 to better frame those programs, to start packaging those projects into bundles, which is how they're actually funded through our local agency program. We're going to continue to support our local government partners, especially our smaller municipalities, through special planning studies. We've identified $1 million a year over the life of the plan to fund those special studies. We've had a few great examples over the past few years where we've helped partners really fully envision what the transportation system could be. And then the next one is local road widening, as I mentioned on the previous slide, $298 million to support your local governments in building some of those roads out where they're most congested and other solutions will not yield the same result. And following through with our board's policy, your policy for using up to 10%, or rather up to 30% of our district dedicated revenue for premium transit. So in the years 2036 through 2045, we've identified $90 million that can be allocated for the premium transit operations. But if we go to the next slide, so that's a little bit about the programs. Something else that we've done over the past few weeks is done a significant GIS, or kind of a geographic information system, or online mapping overhaul. All that information can be found on the MetroPlan Orlando website. If you go to our Maps and Tools tab, and then you check out our data viewer, you'll see two tabs there: cost feasible projects and our multimodal needs for across the region. So a spatial virtual map representation of those cost feasible projects. We can go to the next slide, please. And this is where I'm going to ask for your recommendation for approval. As our advisory committees mentioned in their reports, they did have workshop format agendas, so we attempted to build consensus around those, so we don't have a formal recommendation from them. Our advisory committee members can speak to that if they choose, but at this point in the agenda, we are asking for your approval of the 2045 plan, as well as our congestion management process. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to field those. If not, a suggested motion is displayed on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you. First, do we have any questions from the board that's present?
Mr. Chairman, I am looking to see if there are any hands. I'll give it just a moment in case there are.
Okay. Do we have anybody has their hands raised? Excuse me.
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Seeing no questions, I first want to say that I want to thank staff for all their hard work and all the hard work of the citizens. I think there's been a lot of big effort that's been pushed to get this done over the past couple of years. I want to thank everyone for their hard work. Well done. Direction from the board.
Move approval of the suggested motion.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make a comment, quick comment. In case everybody didn't get a chance to read all the comments that are in our book. Just wanted to point out an interesting one. We got a comment from former Congressman John Micah on page 39. So with that, I'll second the motion, Jana.
And that, just for clarification, that motion was the verbiage that was stated on the screen earlier?
At the end.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to add, if I could, the working group, you know, these, Alex and, Cynthia and Nick, and the working group, allowed a knucklehead mayor from Maitland to participate, and I really appreciate it. They did a lot of work.
Thank you. Any other discussion, any raised hands, Ms. Virginia?
Who was the motion maker, please?
It was, Mayor McDonald made the motion,
Jana on the second.
Jana made the second.
And
Any
Mr.
raised
Chairman,
hands?
there are no raised hands, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll call a roll call vote. Staff?
Sure, those who are online, Arrington,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Siplin,
Aye.
Zimbauer,
Yes.
Gomez Cordero,
Aye.
and to those in the room, Commissioner Delary,
Aye.
Mayor Dyer,
Yes.
Mayor Demmings,
Aye.
Mr. Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Grebe,
Aye.
Commissioner Janer,
Yes.
Mayor McDonald,
Aye.
Mayor Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Uribe,
Aye.
and Mayor Woodruff.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate everyone's hard work on that one.
Yeah.
Now we'll move to the election of board officers for 2021. I'd like to turn the gavel or the podium over to our attorney, Jerry Small. Mr. Small.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the end of the year, at the last scheduled meeting, the board elects its officers for the next year. They are installed at the next meeting unless otherwise directed by the board. This year, what I'd like to do with the board's agreement is to go through the elections in terms of first dealing with the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary treasurer. In tab 4 of the board's agenda materials are excerpts from the operating procedures of MetroPlan. And before engaging in or discussing the actual votes, I'd like to briefly summarize some of those provisions. Under the operating procedures, this election of officers is scheduled for the last meeting of each calendar year, and the board shall elect from its voting membership a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary-treasurer. Each officer shall be from a different local government or transportation agency. In the materials that staff has provided, you can see the history of the past chairs from 1996 through last year. It has been the practice consistent with the board's operating procedures that the offices be rotated by jurisdiction, and that would contemplate that the 2021 chairperson is likely to be from Osceola County. I would request, and Ms. Whittington will help me in this regard, that all board members who are appearing remotely should use the raised hand button to be recognized for motions or seconds and unmute their microphones in preparation of any votes. The operating procedures provide that the chair, vice chair, and secretary treasurer offices shall be for a limited to 2 consecutive years to 2 consecutive one-year terms, and neither shall be eligible until 2 additional years have elapsed. Nor should or shall a member from the same local governmental agency or government succeed another representative from that agency. And then finally, as I said before, the newly elected officers shall be declared installed and shall assume their duties of office at the first scheduled meeting of the new calendar year unless otherwise designated by the board. Those are the most significant provisions of the operating procedures, which are contained at page 51 and 52, tab 4 of the agenda package. Proceeding first, I would like to take, unless there are any questions from the board, nominations for the chairperson.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Janer for chair.
Second,
From Commissioner Grebe.
Who was the second, please?
Uribe.
Are there any other nominations? I would ask for a motion to close the nominations.
Move to close nominations.
Second.
All those in favor of the closing of the nominations, please vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, I would like to now ask for a nomination, or rather a motion to approve the nomination as chair for 2021.
So moved, Grebe.
Second, Uribe.
And I'd like to have a vote taken on that, please.
Aye.
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 Yeah. Okay. Moving now to the vice chairman, I'd like to take a nomination for vice chairman.
I think that was a congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Congratulations.
I'd like to nominate Mayor McDonald.
The problem with me is I'm terming out 4 months, so.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Uribe.
Second.
Thank you, though, for the thought.
Who was the motion maker and the seconder, please?
Motion maker was Janer.
Seconded by Delary.
Are there any other nominations? If not, can I have a motion to close the nominations?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of closing the nominations, can we have a vote, please?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'd like a motion to approve the nomination for vice chairman and take a vote, please.
So moved.
Second.
And can we have
Who
a
was
vote
the
on
motion
that?
maker and the seconder, please?
Janer.
Delary.
I'd like to now move to nomination of secretary treasurer. Did we take a vote on that?
No, you did not.
Okay, we need a vote on that, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Now,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
congratulations. Now I'd like to take nominations for the secretary treasurer. Following tradition, this should be a representative, or could be a representative from Seminole County, and could be a board member from a city in Seminole County.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Delary.
Mr. Small, you do have a hand raised on Zoom.
You have a hand raised?
Yep. Who's that?
Commissioner Zimbauer.
Second,
Yes, sir.
second for Commissioner Delary.
Thanks, Jay.
Are there any other nominations?
Move to close the nominations.
Second.
All those in favor of closing nominations?
Aye.
I would like to ask for a motion to approve the nomination of Commissioner Delary as Secretary Treasurer.
I'll motion.
Aye. Oh,
We need a second.
second.
Okay, and then we'd like to take a vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Could I please have the motion maker and seconder on those, please?
I believe I made the motion. Smith.
Zimbauer, second.
Congratulations. I think we can have a vote.
Congratulations.
No good deed goes unpunished, Bob.
That concludes this portion of the meeting, sir.
Okay, great. Now we have informational item on the agenda for acknowledgement. It's in our packet. We have to have a motion for acceptance of the acknowledgement.
Move to accept, Janer.
Second, Uribe.
Any hands raised?
There
Any
are no.
questions? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion passes. Okay, we have a presentation from BEEP, and their staff people will be presenting to us. I think this will be rather interesting and very informative. Maybe something that we should be looking at in more depth. So, Gary, you want to tee this up before we turn it over to the...
Yeah, just to say that Raquel Asa from BEEP contacted me earlier in the year. I believe it was probably in August, perhaps September, and asked to come before the board in November, and we had a full agenda then, and I told her that that was not likely going to happen, but that I would hold a spot for her in December. And she and I have met since then on this and some other issues, and so I told her that she could have some time this morning, so she can take over the screen.
Ms. Raquel?
Wonderful, and good morning. I guess I can get away with saying that for the next 2 hours here, right before noon. My name is Raquel Ace. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at BEEP. If my name sounds familiar, it's because in the past I have sat in the audience watching many of the transportation decisions that many of you folks make from the elected leader position here in Central Florida. So thank you so much for pushing forward many of the transportation initiatives that are really needed for our community and our area in order to enhance mobility for everyone, whatever mode of transportation it is that people so decide to use within the community. So BEEP, I'm sure some of you, who are listening today have heard our name in the past, and we really wanted to take this as an opportunity to give everybody the chance to see the progress that we have made here, right in your own backyard, in Orange County, City of Orlando, right in the planned development of Lake Nona. I think when it comes to testing autonomous technology, some people tend to think that it's something that's coming in the future, but we are proud to say that we are doing it right now today with these autonomous vehicles. That's one of the autonomous vehicles that we use right now in Lake Nona. And we'll give you an update on some of the progress, successes, and also some of the learnings that we have been able to learn over the last more than a year now of operating on the road. Some of you may have been in elected leader positions or remember when we first launched our first shuttle in Lake Nona in Orange County within the Tavistock development. That was September 2019. Back then, we started with just one route and 2 shuttles. And somebody I'd like to introduce you to as well, who's going to be co-presenting with me today, is Jennifer Foote, and she will talk about the progress and the success that we were able to do and accomplish over the last year, specifically in Lake Nona, which is our cornerstone deployment. Seems that I have a security alert. That's not good.
Can we have staff address that, please?
Thank you very much. And I'm trying to advance. There we go. My counterpart, my colleague here, Jennifer Foote, is the SVP of Customer Success. She is essentially the main pinpoint person between our autonomous vehicle suppliers and our regulatory front, our federal regulatory front with National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, because they essentially make sure that the vehicles and the autonomous vehicles that we're operating, not just here in Central Florida, but also throughout the state. We'll provide you an update on some of the projects that we've launched throughout the state, essentially putting the state of Florida on the map as launching one of the largest and longest running AV fleet deployments in the country right now with the progress that we have made in Lake Nona. So some of you may, as I mentioned, know who we are as a company, BEEP, and what we do, but we'd like to give you a little bit more insight on us and really show you what we're doing throughout the state of Florida and, of course, right here in Central Florida. Is there someone who can play this video for me here?
I think they're looking for the button. we may have to opt not to have that little video.
Yeah, is someone in the background, Cynthia or Mary Ann?
Yeah.
Okay. Raquel,
I can
you
actually
just
share
skip
my
the video?
screen, yes. Yes, if they can give me, they disabled participant screen sharing, so if they can allow me to share, that would be great, and then I can show the video.
Go ahead, Raquel, you should be able to share.
Someone will need to unshare their screen first, and then I can play. Can Lisa Smith unshare her screen? There we go. Can everybody see? Thank you for going through and the technical difficulties.
Hi, my name is Raquel Asa. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Beep, and we're proud to be headquartered in Orlando, Florida, right here in Lake Nona, a 17-square-mile planned development that is the test bed for the most advanced autonomous shuttle platforms. There's so much that goes into the safe planning, deployment, and testing of these autonomous vehicles before we have them share the road with you, the public. That's where Beep plays a crucial role in the safe operation, management, and continuous monitoring of autonomous vehicles as we deploy many of them throughout the state. We ensure that safety touches every aspect of our company, from the type of self-driving shuttle we put on the road, to where we test them in the real world, to how we engage the community, to monitoring the operation inside the vehicle at all times. For more on our company overview and why Beep decided to lead the autonomous vehicle industry with fixed route and low-speed shuttles on public roads, let's go to our CEO, Joe Moy. Joe, why would you say low-speed shuttles on fixed routes are leading autonomous vehicle testing, and how does Beep, as an autonomous mobility as a service provider, help advance autonomous vehicle testing and the regulatory front?
So I think the reality of it is most people equate autonomous vehicles to what you read in the about in the proverbial robo-taxi, the anywhere, anytime, any speed type deployments. You know, what people need to understand about the autonomous vehicle marketplace is that these controlled speed, fixed route use cases in a geo-fenced area, what's affectionately called last mile, first mile type deployments, that is where we're really able to put these vehicles into use today, where they're interfacing with pedestrians, they're traversing intersections, they're dealing with bicyclists, other vehicles, the types of obstacles and environments that you're going to face out there on the roadways. And so being able to safely deploy these today in that operating domain is really what we believe is the point of the spear of the testing of autonomous vehicles. On the regulatory front, really important partnerships there, not only with the Florida Department of Transportation and how we're working with them, but as importantly, dealing with the U.S. Department of Transportation and NHTSA specifically, who governs the use of these vehicles. That partnership is so critical to be able to share data and share information on all the learnings that we have out there with every route that we travel and every experience that we have in these vehicles interfacing with what, you know, in any driven scenario, you'd see many situations that you face day in and day out that these vehicles need to learn to adapt to and ultimately respond to very safely in the operation of these platforms.
Joe, we often hear it takes great public and private partnerships and a commitment to innovation to test autonomous vehicles. What are some of the partnerships that Beep has now within Florida that are helping test this technology?
With the transformation of these new autonomous platforms and what we're doing to work with specific private sector partners, in the case of developers and other partners that we are working with in the deployment of these programs, it's bringing an entirely different perspective on how we fund these initiatives. What's important about the public-private partnerships is the ability to combine government-funded initiatives with private sector dollars. And I'd also say hats off to our Florida Department of Transportation, who in particular is funding multiple projects across the state that we've been fortunate to support. That is a great example of how Florida is continuing to lead the charge at all levels. Some of the great projects that are part of this public-private partnership that we're working with here in the state of Florida are the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority. We just launched a project in downtown St. Petersburg that's going extremely well with great rider adoption and a lot of excitement in that community. Additional with the Hillsborough Area Regional Transit HART in downtown Tampa, where we're proving out how these shuttles can interface with mass transit environments to serve as a bit of that hub and spoke type deployment.
So it seems that we have lost the audio there with the video. But what essentially it goes into is highlighting all of the projects that we have across the state with other agencies, and specifically transit agencies as well, such as the Hillsborough Area Regional Transit Agency, Pinellas Suncoast Transit Agency. They have a deployment that is through the Bayshore Drive area. And then also we have a partnership as well with the Jacksonville Transportation Authority too. And that is an initiative that we have with them that allows us to be able to test that technology as they look at testing multiple autonomous vehicle platforms, as they look to see which really is best as they look to enhance their transportation initiatives as well. So with that being said, I'd like to take a moment as well to just really highlight some of the successes that we've had here in Orange County. And for that, I'd like to send it over to Jennifer Foote, our SVP of Customer Success, to highlight our successes here right in our own backyard in Orange County in the city of Orlando. So
Thank you. Thank you, Raquel. And thanks to everyone for giving us an opportunity to speak with you this morning. Mayor Dyer and Mayor Deming, it's great to connect again after the great collaboration we had on the work that we did over in Lake Nona. It's hard to believe it's been more than a year since we've launched that service, and we have had great success in part due to the collaborative effort with the mayors, with Tavistock, who was our private partner on this, as well as FDOT partnering with us to understand what we're doing here and make the way open for us to do that. So, you know, Raquel mentioned that we started just over a year ago with 2 shuttles on 1 route. And since then, we've grown to operate the largest and longest running AV mobility network in the country. And that's an accomplishment we're quite proud of, and it's very unique. I think that when we present this, this information across the country to potential partners and customers, we find that they're quite surprised to learn that you know, while we're continuing to learn and test some of the features of this AV technology, we're actually providing a service on public roads in mixed traffic. And that service has grown from those first 2 shuttles on 1 route to now 8 shuttles on 4 routes, providing a valuable service to the community, connecting a dense residential area to various points of interest throughout the community. So we're able to bring visitors and residents alike to vital services over at the Orlando VA Medical Center, to entertainment at the Lake Nona Town Center. Many of you who have traveled over to Lake Nona and checked out what's going on there might recall seeing Boxy Park. So there's events and entertainment options all throughout Boxy Park, and the sorry, just got a little ding there. through the town center itself, farmers markets on the weekends, big Christmas activities and holiday activities, events that would benefit different types of nonprofits. So lots going on there to serve the community as well as the residents there in Lake Nona. We were able to connect folks over to the adventure park and the city park, Heroes Park there in Lake Nona. And, you know, while it does provide a great benefit to residents and visitors, just moving them around the community, it also serves a very important safety benefit, and that is removing vehicles from the road. And we believe that that really does have a strong impact on safety. First and foremost, we've operated all of these routes and shuttles here in Lake Nona incident-free. So we have a perfect safety record. In the first 6 months of service, actually, if you count the interruption that we had from COVID, we traveled more than 9,000 miles. We transported 16,000 passengers. And we believe that that removed about 9,400 vehicle trips off the road. So that's a really important factor when you think about congestion, parking constraints, but more importantly, the fact that, I mean, we know a high percentage, up to 90% of accidents are caused by human error. There's a high population here in Lake Nona, high cyclist community. So getting personal vehicles off the road that are human operated certainly increases safety from that perspective, but introducing a technology that responds at least 3 times quicker than a human increases that safety factor exponentially. One of the things we're also really proud of here, because of our service in Lake Nona, is the relationship that we've been able to develop with NHTSA. So they're the regulatory body that helps us and guides us in the testing and deployment of these vehicles. And so over the course of the year, we've been able to develop such a strong and mutually respectful relationship with NHTSA that we were invited as the only AV operator to participate in their NHTSA AV test rollout initiative. And so that's a program that provides the public across the country information about what's going on in the world of AV, where these initiatives are taking place, and what the benefits are to the community, the communities that do roll these things out. So it's just another way for communities like Lake Nona and our customers in other parts of the state and country to get visibility on innovative work that they're carrying out to improve safety in their communities, as well as to be known as leaders in innovation. I'm going to pause there for just a moment and ask if anybody has any questions about the service in Lake Nona.
Any questions from the board? Do we have any raised hands, Ms. Virginia?
I don't see any raised hands at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's continue.
So one of the things that, again, we had a great collaborative effort on in Lake Nona was securing a $20 million USDOT build grant. And so that build grant is designed and offered by the U.S. Department of Transportation to allow communities to seek and secure funding to support the use of development to create additional transportation or mobility options. So back in the summer of 2019, we partnered with Orange County and Tavistock and supported the effort to apply for a build grant, and we won that. It's really an exciting endeavor and an exciting accomplishment for this important public-private partnership between Tavistock and Orange County. In a lot of cases, these build grants are not awarded on the first time out the gate. And in this case, it was. And that speaks to that significant partnership and significant interest in moving an innovative approach to mobility forward right here in the Lake Nona community. So this grant is going to support building out the infrastructure and multimodal paths to enable what we expect to be an additional 25 AVs deployed throughout the Lake Nona community in the coming 3 years. Again, just thinking about the impact that that will have on safety, we do believe it's going to significantly decrease the need for personal vehicles and the need for utilizing precious real estate for parking. We'll be able to use that real estate to provide additional services and amenities to the community rather than taking up space for parking.
Hey, Jen, I think we're having some sort of reverb with your microphone. So maybe if you can log off and then log back on and then see if we get a better connection, that'll be great. And then I'll continue some of our projects throughout the state. So when you look at our projects here throughout the state of Florida, it looks like I have reverb as well. So we mentioned our Hillsborough Area Transit, Pinellas Suncoast Transit Agency, and JTA. And so when you look at some of the best practices that you have or that we have figured out and learned from all of these deployments, is that they're really all trying to solve the same thing, the first mile, last mile solution. And so I share these projects with you as you as a board decide and evaluate where do you see yourself with these projects that we've done with all three of these transit agencies. So with HART specifically, we're serving that first mile, last mile solution, working as a cog in the wheel of the greater transit network. So that particular deployment, we're connecting a transit hub that has roughly about half a dozen bus routes, and then our shuttle goes all the way down a dedicated transit corridor, which we have many of those in downtown Orlando, Central Florida, and it connects to roughly a 3-minute walk from their Tico streetcar line. And so we're providing that connection between their main network all the way to their other network, and then it's a circulator that runs 5 days a week through downtown Tampa. Through PSTA, that is a tourism corridor. It's a redeveloped waterfront, gorgeous area if you've ever been over to St. Petersburg. But that particular area is along Bayshore Drive. And when I look at some of the similarities of that particular area and that deployment, there's a lot of parallels on what we offer here in Orange County, but it connects their museums, a sports district. They have the Rowdy Stadium and some of the hotels within the corridor. Happy to report that that particular project, even in the middle of COVID, is seeing some of very high ridership. We had almost 400 riders just in the first week with that. In the first week of service that started just before Thanksgiving. And that just shows that people see this as a valuable option because it also connects to their Cross Bay Ferry, which connects Tampa over to the St. Pete Bayshore Drive corridor, which also has a pier. And JTA is a very interesting partnership as well. As I mentioned, we're helping them test and learn multiple autonomous vehicle platforms on their isolated enclosed campus. We also did a partnership with them in the middle of COVID where we utilized their assets that they already had on the ground. And we did a full autonomous transport of COVID-19 tests over in Jacksonville on the Mayo Clinic campus. And we transported roughly about 22,000 COVID-19 tests with that particular shuttle that you see here, in addition to 3 other shuttles. And it utilized those shuttles with nobody on board and essentially did 2 things for the Jacksonville community and for the healthcare workers. It reduced their exposure to the virus and also allowed those healthcare workers who would have needed to transport those tests to the other building, allowed them to free up their work cycles to really do other things where they're really needed on the front lines, opposed to just transporting COVID-19 tests. And I think, Jen, are you back with us, Jen?
I am, yes. Is that
There we go.
reverb better?
Much better. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. No problem. Sorry about that, folks. So guys, thanks so much again for your patience with my technical issues there. One of the things that we wanted to share with you guys were some of the learnings and critical success factors that we've developed just to help municipalities and organizations that are thinking about an AV deployment. This really is not just a transportation or transit project, it's a technology project as well. Many of us who are working here at BEEP have come over from technology backgrounds and combined our skill sets and expertise with folks from the transportation industry to come up with what we believe is the best approach to implementing technologies like autonomous vehicles in the community. And so with that in mind, came up with several things across people, process, and technology, the three critical components of any technology project, and I think in any project in general, for success. And first and foremost, we believe in being very proactive with community engagement. We do that for a couple of reasons. When you're introducing any sort of new technology, even a very mundane technology, I'm sure many of you have gone through an email migration or the introduction of a new technology for supporting a business process. Even in those types of technology changes, it really requires proactive engagement with the folks who will be using that technology to make them comfortable and make sure that they know everything they need to know about that to ensure that they take advantage of that new technology. You can deploy the most beautiful solution in the world, but if nobody uses it because they're not sure about it or don't know how to adopt it, it's useless. So we really want to help our customers to get the most value out of the service that's being deployed by reaching out proactively to the community and then taking it a step further into the emergency responder community, wherever we're launching, and even into operations centers for municipalities and public agencies that are launching this. So everybody has a very strong understanding of how the technology works, the benefits that the community will receive from it, and most importantly, the safety features, both native to the technology as well as built into our processes all the way through from planning to deployment and then post-deployment operations. And what we found is that this really does increase enthusiasm for the technology as well as adoption. We really want to make sure that the investment is well spent and that folks are going to hop on the shuttle and take a ride and incorporate it into their daily lives, which is going to keep the solutions sustainable. One of the reasons that BEEP is actually in business is because we realize that it takes a lot of different skill sets to bring one of these deployments to life. There's a lot of critical knowledge and it's fairly scarce in the marketplace. We're still a new technology and a new industry. And so making sure that we've been able to make the key hires to bring that critical knowledge to bear for our customers and then to provide on-the-ground support for deployment and operations is something that we play a critical role in partnership with any of our customers. We work very closely with industry experts and our suppliers, not just to deploy city by city or location by location, but really to incorporate those learnings into every future deployment that we do so that we can scale our operations appropriately and continue to deliver the excellent service that we've become known for in the deployments that we've delivered thus far. One of the reasons we've been successful in that is that we've implemented a strong rigor within our program management office. We believe that's important for a couple of reasons. I can't mention safety enough. but making sure that we have an established checklist of practices all the way from the planning process where we're looking at potential routes, making sure those routes are viable from a safety perspective, from an operational perspective. How are we mitigating any risks as we begin to engage in mixed traffic operation, and then making sure that we're respecting the timelines and the budgets that we've committed to. So that PMO serves a critical role in the delivery of our projects and the post deployment operations. Part of that is really having a transparent customer onboarding process. We start with a kickoff for
Jennifer,
everyone.
excuse me, Jennifer, would you please wrap this up in the next minute or two?
Yep, absolutely. One of the last things that I'd want to share with you guys very quickly is the BEEP Command Center. So we've launched what we believe is the first command center dedicated solely to the monitoring and operations of AV vehicles, and that's part of our new headquarters right here in Lake Nona in Orlando. We believe that's going to be important to scale the industry as well as providing that critical ongoing operation support as we engage more customers. And I'll end the presentation, guys, with just inviting each and every one of you, if you haven't come out to Lake Nona to see what we're up to see our new offices, see the shuttles in operation, please reach out to either myself or Raquel. We'd love to host you there and take you on a tour in the community. Thank you again for your time.
What I think would be advantageous, when you can actually see something and touch something, it really brings it home. So in the upcoming months, I'd like to schedule a field visit out there for board members out at your facility to actually go for a ride. And I think that may be advantageous for us.
Excellent idea, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, I agree with that. Okay, any questions from board members? Any hands raised?
There are no
All right,
hands.
thank you very much. Okay, before we move on, I just want to make sure we have public comments. Want to make sure, do we have any speaker forms that are filled out? Like to ask staff.
Mr. Chairman, yes, we had one speaker card for the general comments. Ms.
Okay.
Hannah Guntner.
And can you first acknowledge yourself by your name and your address, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, it appears as though she may have left the meeting.
Okay, is there anyone else that has their hands raised?
No additional hands.
Okay, any additional comments?
No other comments received prior to the meeting.
Okay, great. Before we adjourn, I just wanted to wish everyone not only a happy holiday season, but a Merry Christmas. No matter what you celebrate, it's time to definitely reflect. 2020 was definitely a year of issues, and we really have to stay focused on our family and what matters to us. I wanted to thank everyone for their hard work and participating. Any comments from the board?
I wouldn't dare.
Thank you, Mayor. The next scheduled meeting is, hold on a minute, is February 10th, 2021 at 9 a.m. here at MetroPlan Orlando. Now this meeting is adjourned.
And Chairman Delory, we had talked about having an executive committee meeting immediately after this, but we lost that. So we'll reschedule an executive committee meeting sometime between now and your February board meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.